The Real Truth About Mermaids. Chapter 3. Mermaids in the Ancient and Medieval World. The story of the sirens did not end with Enoch's prophecy or the destruction of the Nephilim in the flood. Their memory spread across nations and civilizations, carried in all traditions, carved in stone, sung in poems, and whispered at the water's edge. From Mesopotamia to Africa, from Europe to the Caribbean, from Asia to the far reaches of the Americas, the image of the woman of the waters haunted humanity. What modern men dismiss as mythology was, to the ancients, reality. Priests built temples to them. Poets described their beauty. Sailors feared their songs. Mothers warned their children not to play too close to rivers. The sirens were not just stories. They were the lingering shadow of a curse that began in the days of Noah. This chapter traces the memory of mermaids across the ancient and medieval world, showing that the pattern of the sirens is too universal, too consistent, to be the invention of imagination. Each culture tells the same story in different tongues. Beautiful water spirits who bless with one hand and destroy with the other. Mesopotamia, the fish gods of Babylon. In Mesopotamia, the cradle of civilization, some of the oldest depictions of fish-like deities appear. The Assyrian goddess Atargates, worshipped in Syria and northern Mesopotamia, was portrayed as a woman whose lower body merged into the form of a fish. Her priests served in temples at Hierapolis and Ashkelon, performing rituals that included sexual rites and blood sacrifices. Ancient historians such as Lucian of Samosata recorded her cult, noting that sacred ponds surrounded her temples, where fish were considered divine. The Philistines, who lived along the coast, worshipped Dagon, the fish god. Archaeological findings from Mari and Ashdod depict Dagon as a half-man, half-fish figure. The Bible records that when the Philistines captured the Ark of the Covenant, they placed it in Dagon's temple at Ashdod. But when they returned the next morning, Dagon had fallen on his face before the Ark. On the following day, his head and hands were broken off, leaving only the stump of his fish-like body. This was no coincidence. The living God had revealed his power over the marine spirits of the nations. The presence of Atargates and Dagon in Mesopotamia shows that the sirens' influence was not forgotten after the flood. Their worship was institutionalized, woven into the very fabric of religion and kingship. The priests of Dagon believed that wisdom flowed from the sea. In the Babylonian epic, the god Oannes, described as a fishman, rose from the ocean to teach mankind knowledge. Does this not echo the words of the Greek sirens, who promised Odysseus secret wisdom? The pattern is the same: spirits of the waters, offering gifts, demanding worship, and enslaving men. Greece, the seductive song. No civilization preserved the memory of the sirens more vividly than Greece. In Homer's Odyssey, Odysseus sails past their island, where the sirens sing a song of irresistible beauty. Come here, renowned Odysseus, honor to the Achaean name. Stay your ship, that you may listen to our voices. For never yet has any man rowed past this isle in his black ship, until he has heard the honeyed voices from our lips. Then he goes on his way rejoicing, knowing more than before. The sirens did not promise Odysseus pleasure. They promised knowledge. This is key. They tempted him not merely with beauty, but with secret wisdom, the same forbidden knowledge once taught by the fallen angels to their wives. Their song was not entertainment, it was enchantment. Odysseus, warned by the sorceress Circe, plugged the ears of his men with beeswax, and had himself tied to the mast so that he could hear their song but not succumb. The account may be myth, but its spiritual lesson is real. The only way to resist the sirens is to be bound, not to a mast, but to truth. Early Greek art depicted the sirens as part bird, part woman, perched on rocky cliffs. Later, their image transformed into fishwoman, reflecting the influence of Mesopotamian traditions. The sirenes were always dangerous, always destructive. Sailors feared them so much that they painted their likenesses on ship prows as charms to ward off their power. Greek poets such as Hesiod and Ovid wrote of them, while philosophers debated their symbolism. But one thing remained constant: the siren were never harmless. They lured men to destruction, leaving their bones piled upon the shore. Africa, mothers of the waters. Africa retains some of the clearest memories of the sirens, remembered not as fairy tales, but as living spirits. Across West Africa, the goddess Mami Wata, mother of waters, is revered and feared. She appears in carvings and paintings as a dazzling woman with flowing hair, sometimes accompanied by a great serpent. Her devotees testify that she brings sudden wealth, beauty, or healing, but always at a price. Fishermen tell of being dragged into rivers by Mami Wata, sometimes returning days later with strange gifts, and sometimes never returning at all. Shrines dedicated to her line the Niger, the Congo, and the coasts of West Africa. Sacrifices of food, animals, and even humans have been recorded in her honor. The Yoruba people worship Yemoja, goddess of the sea, still invoked in rituals today. She is often portrayed as a mermaid, her eyes filled with mystery. Ritual offerings of soap, perfume, and mirrors are cast into rivers and seas to appease her, gifts that reflect the very tools of the sirens: beauty, vanity, and enchantment. Farther south, the Dogon tribe speaks of the Nomos, amphibious beings who emerge from the waters to teach mankind. Anthropologists dismiss them as legend, but the Dogon insist their ancestors encountered these beings directly. Again the pattern appears: water spirits, hidden knowledge, and covenant. The Caribbean. Inherited memories. When enslaved Africans were carried across the Atlantic, they carried their water spirits with them. In Jamaica, elders tell of River Mama, a mermaid-like figure who combs her long hair with a golden comb at the river's edge. Anyone who disturbs her waters is drowned. In Haiti, Vodou practitioners honor la sirène, spirit of the seas. Depicted as a mermaid holding a mirror, she promises beauty and wealth. Worshippers cast offerings into the sea, testifying that she can bless or curse with equal power. Vodou songs call upon her to wash away poverty. Yet many who enter her covenant find themselves bound in cycles of sickness, loss, or misfortune. These Caribbean traditions show that the sirens' influence survived exile and slavery. Their memory is alive in the New World. Europe, selkies, nixes, and rusalki. Europe also remembers the women of the waters. In Ireland and Scotland, tales of selkies speak of seal women who shed their skins to become human. They marry men, bear children, and live on land. But once their skins are found, they abandon everything and return to the sea. The tragedy of the selkie echoes the curse of the sirens, bound to the waters, unable to remain on land. In Germany, legends of mixies describe water maidens who offer music or treasure, but lure men to drown. The Lorelei sits upon a rock above the Rhine, singing so sweetly that sailors crash upon the shoals. In Russia, the rusalki are restless spirits of women who died by drowning or betrayal. Appearing as beautiful maidens, they ensnare men in rivers, pulling them beneath the weeds. Though framed as ghosts, their nature mirrors the sirens, alluring women bound to the waters, bringers of death. These European traditions are too consistent to be dismissed as coincidence. Even in lands far removed from Babylon or Africa, the same beings were remembered, feared, and woven into folklore. The medieval world, sailors, and chronicles. By the medieval period, encounters with mermaids moved from myth into sailors' logs and chronicles. Viking sagas record sightings of Marlon, sea spirits who could foretell the future. Celtic bards sang of meros, mermaids who wore magical caps, allowing them to travel between sea and land. The Norse told of Maren, sea wives, who promised knowledge of storms in exchange for devotion. Icelandic texts describe men who claimed to have fought sea women, dragging sailors beneath the waves. Even explorers of the Age of Discovery recorded such encounters. In 1493, Christopher Columbus wrote in his log that he saw 3 mermaids off the coast of Hispaniola. He admitted they were not so beautiful as they are painted, yet insisted they were real creatures rising from the waves. Historians dismissed them as manatees, but Columbus was an experienced sailor who knew sea cows well. Why then did he call them mermaids? Because their appearance carried the same disturbing human likeness described for centuries. Later explorers from Holland, Portugal, and England also claimed to have seen mermaids. In 1560, the Dutch chronicler Adriaan Cornen recorded a mermaid caught in the nets of fishermen. In 1608, Henry Hudson's crew recorded seeing a mermaid in the Arctic seas. These were not superstitious peasants. They were trained navigators risking their lives at sea, the universal pattern. When we look across Mesopotamia, Greece, Africa, the Caribbean, Europe, and the medieval explorers, a single pattern emerges. A woman-like figure tied to the waters. A promise of beauty, wealth, knowledge, or love. A demand for loyalty, covenant, or sacrifice. And always a tragic end, drowning, infertility, loss of soul, or destruction. The pattern is universal. Different nations, separated by oceans and centuries, remembered the same beings. This cannot be dismissed as coincidence. Prophetic insight. A kingdom beneath the persistence of mermaid traditions across cultures is not a sign of shared imagination, but of shared reality. The sirens were bound to the waters, and from there they ruled as queens of a hidden kingdom. Their thrones are beneath the seas, yet their influence stretches into human dreams, rituals, and societies. Ancient men worshipped them as goddesses. Medieval sailors feared them as monsters. Modern culture paints them as fairy tales. But beneath every mask lies the same spirit. The cursed wives of the fallen angels, bound to the waters until the day of judgment. This sets the stage for the next chapter, where we will explore the marine kingdom after the flood, the hidden empire of spirits beneath the seas, and how their power still touches our world today.